Well, looks like it's just going to be me today. Welcome to and the Smeltz. No, Sloan and the Smeltz hitting at you fast here. I've got Tim Friedlander. He's a dude. No, so actually I've never spoken with Tim, but we're going to get started here in just a second. You know this is recorded, right? I hope you do. Hopefully we get to share the essence of Tim. I'm excited for that. Truly, really, purposefully, lovingly, kindly.
You hear me there, man?
I can. Hi.
Awesome. I'm gonna go in the booth in 1 second.
Aw.
Cool. Do you need the camera on for this, or do you do it without the camera?
Whatever you want, man. Whatever you want.
I'll do it without the camera because that'll be easier.
Sure. Well, okay, Tim. First of all, thanks for taking the time. I'll be straight up with you. Yesterday, I looked up some of your stuff, and I was like, "Holy cow, this dude has done some work."
I've done a little bit of stuff, man. Yeah, I've done a few.
Okay, so I'm a dude who loves getting to know like the essence of you. You know, like after hearing, I mean, you've probably talked about so much of what you've done before. What are some of the things that you don't normally talk about on shows? That's what I want to talk about.
That's a good question, man. I mean, all the stuff that I talk about is all voiceover related. So I've done a bunch of stuff outside of that. I come out of education, so I taught for 12 years, and I'm a musician primarily. Actually, I'll give you a camera because that makes it easier at least than staring at nothing.
Check out that kick-ass area, huh?
So there we go. All right, so you get that instead.
Yeah, there you go. Hi, hello.
Oh, all right. Yeah, and it's the side over there. So I'm gonna turn. Let me do this. Let me actually turn.
You've got the booth down, dog.
Yeah, we got this. I got this set up, man. You got to do it right, you know.
That's right.
Dude, how's that? Is that kind of?
People can tell you're in voiceover because of your smooth sound already.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You ever do?
Let me close the door here real quick. I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back.
Sure. We've got the time to wait for Timothy. Yeah. I kind of like getting to know like what people are up to inside their element. I see a bunch of stuff inside the place.
What was that?
Oh, I love seeing people inside their element, dude. I really, I mean, the main thing I love is like comfortability. I hate being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Hate it. Anyway, so you taught for 12 years. You do talk about mainly voiceover, but some of the stuff that you don't normally talk about.
Let's see. Let me move the screen too.
During construction here, we're having technical difficulties.
All right. There we go.
That's brand new room design.
All right. Yeah, that's a good question, man. Voiceover is something I got. I kind of started full time in 2016. But before that, I'm from Seattle area, originally Idaho area, and just I don't know, man. That's a good question. I mean, so much of what I've done the last 5-6 years is just so voiceover centric. That's all I ever talk about. So I'm happy to talk about whatever.
Well, okay, so I would love to hear about growing up and your love for music and really talking about some of those passions that led you to who you are budding into at the earlier age and then kind of leading you into where you are now. Kind of the origin story that maybe most people don't know about.
Yeah. I'll see if I can figure one out.
So. This is something you don't normally talk about, is it?
No, I don't. Not. I talk a little bit about. It's usually just kind of like the cliff notes of, from Idaho, grew up on a farm, and then from there, kind of, did college and music and all that stuff. Ended up in LA in 2002, and then just kind of, it's kind of been a blur since then, I guess. So
growing up in Idaho, I mean, did you make weird voices? Did you try and please your family? I mean, your mom and dad, were they proud of you growing up, or they're like, you need to do a normal career?
No. My dad's a drama teacher. My mom's a nurse. So, we got theater and music and everything and on all my sides of my family. So that definitely that's just part of growing up. You just do whatever you want to do, you know. Um, so there was never any pressure. Now, I mean, if anything, you know, it all came whatever pressure came from me, from myself, you know. So
So how do you press yourself into getting in better these days?
you know, I mean, it's I mean, how do you pressure yourself to get better? That's a good question. I mean, you know, it's partially, I mean, it's multifaceted. I mean, you know, it's competition. You see other people getting better. You want to get better, you know, get better with them. You see other people who are, you know, doing things you want to do. So you want to do that. Or you just, you know, figuring out, you know, knowing that you have the potential to do more than what you're doing. And that you just got to figure out a way to get better at what you're doing.
You know, it's funny that you talk about that missing that potential because Shelby normally, I mean, one of her main strengths is like seeing like wasted potential in people.
Mhm.
So if she ever listens to your stuff, she'd be like, "Hey, here's something I've heard." No, I'm kidding.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But how do you? I mean, how do you push yourself, man? Like, what do you do? Like, what are you up to now that you're like you wish you were just something that you're just so much better at?
I mean, man, you know, I guess it's, you know, the consummate, you know, every artist wants to be better at what they are. That, you know, no matter how good you are, you know, you wish you were better. You wish you were doing something different. I mean, you know, I wish I was better at almost everything that I'm doing. So you know, and every aspect of that, whether it's, you know, guitar or clarinet or, you know, drums. I was hoping to, you know, I started to learn how to play drums during quarantine, and you know, kind of didn't fully do that as much as I wanted to, and I wish I had more. So you know, wanted to get better at that. Um, but you know, that's a tough one. I think any artist wants to get better, always.
I completely agree with you. I think that sitting back and just taking stock of where you're at, like how do you? One thing I've noticed is gratitude. A lot of
Mhm.
people really don't practice that these days,
Mhm.
and just like you said, it's just been a blur since '02. So it's like,
To a certain extent, yeah, yeah.
well, so how do you slow down, man? Like how do you get out of that rat race of um, of either competition or not even just with yourself, but just with fellow fellow folks such as myself and all these other people. Are you trying to compete against these guys? Are you trying to compete about these guys?
No, I mean,
Let's
well, I don't
just
know. Well,
focus on
you have a
competing.
national, you have a global pandemic will slow things down. So that's a good.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's that's a tough one because I've always it's that fine line of, you know, I'm always competitive, but I always feel it's more like competitive against myself versus other people. It's because there's only, you know, it's grass is always greener on the other side. You look at somebody and you know, you think they're doing great and you wish you were doing what they were doing, but you don't see all the stuff that got them to where they are. Um, you know, so that's a tough one. I mean, how do you stop? How do you slow down? I mean, part of it is just being willing to stop and I don't know, just to be able to slow down and not be fearful that slowing down is going to mean you're going to stop, which I think a lot of people do, where it's like, if I don't keep this forward momentum into whatever it is that I'm trying to do, then it's all going to fall apart, or it's going to slow down. I'm never going to have another opportunity, which, you know, coming from a smaller town where you get a couple opportunities here and there every year.
Mm,
If you then you go to a bigger town, like in LA, like, you know, the thing here is like, you know, an audition or you have something, there's always another one tomorrow.
yeah.
There's always more opportunities down the road. There's always new projects. There's always new things happening. You know, you may not always get access to them at some point. You know, if you stay out of the you know, the hunt for so long, then you end up losing access to these auditions. You end up losing access to the people who are casting and the agents. So you have to stay in it to a certain extent. But you know, it's okay to slow down and not do auditions this week, or skip today's auditions, or do something along those lines, and know that tomorrow you're going to have, you know, there'll be another opportunity. And not that it's like, oh, well, you know, I can just stop and there'll always be something there waiting for me, but that it's not this constant grind that you have to keep pushing for every single day, all the time, 24 hours a day, which is definitely, you know, it's kind of what I came to LA to do. I didn't come to LA to settle down and meet somebody and have a family and do all that stuff. I came down here to work,
Yeah, yeah.
um, without, you know, without thinking I was going to be here for 18 years. I mean, that was 18 years ago. I didn't think I'd be here, still be here. So that's, you know, like definitely an intention to work when I came down here. So
So do you feel stuck in Los Angeles?
to a certain extent, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that you know, anytime you've been somewhere for 18 years, you start to feel stuck. To you know,
Tim
uh,
needs to travel more.
Well, and that's the thing is I get out and travel. I play music. I've been, we tour with the band. Got to go, I've been to Jakarta. We tour all over the country. So you get out. But it's, especially in voiceover or anything that I'm doing with the studios, is that it's, we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're always working. And that's, it's like somebody we were joking about today is like, you can't, there's no rest when you're building an empire. You just got to keep grinding away and keep working and keep working.
Yeah, the people need
Uh,
the king, bro.
yeah, right. Yeah. So, you just kind of, I don't know, we just kind of keep doing it. It's, I've been here long enough that I've gone through like different cycles of friend groups as well. So you have, you hang out with certain friends that all kind of scatter and go on and do something else. And then you find a new, you find it was all musicians for a long time. And then everybody kind of booked and started scattering to go and play with other musicians. And then I moved into teaching. So then it becomes all of those teachers that you're working with. And we all kind of move on to different areas. And then, since 2014, 2015 has been full-time VO. So then it's getting in with all the VO people and people
Yeah,
come and go from the VO industry and people
yeah,
come and go from your, the circle of, that you're normally in, that you see on a daily basis. And, so then it's kind of finding that cycle of things that are happening. Yeah. I'm sure I've got friends that I've made, when I first got to LA, or friends from college and high school and stuff that I talked to, but to a certain extent, you're still just, I'm still just came here to work, and it's kind of put your head down mentality, which has been nice to have, and for the nice for the pandemic, but for a lot of people, a lot of people gave them a chance to stop and just breathe and not be stressed about
mm,
falling behind and not feel stressed about all these other things. Um, that you're normally just still doing and doing because nothing ever stops, especially in LA. Things are
yeah,
going. There's filming and there's shooting and there's tours and there's rehearsals and there's sessions and there's connecting with a client who's in Shanghai. So you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing a
yeah,
session on a Saturday morning or whatever, whatever it might be.
yeah.
So
Well, you ever get tired?
was that
You ever get like really tired?
absolutely all the time? I'm exhausted all the time. Absolutely. No, it's exhausting. I mean, it is, um, it is. It's absolutely exhausting. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, what gets me is that you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't love some form of either the push or the grind or something. Otherwise, you would not be doing this, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think I
Okay,
love
let
when
me
I work.
let me
Yeah,
rephrase that a different way. If you weren't doing this, what would you actually be doing with your life? Like
I'd be
a
teaching
dream
school.
life.
I don't know. I don't know what dream life exists. I don't know that that's. I don't know. Because I think that as my dream life of when I first got to LA is much different than what my dream life is now. So if you're constantly working towards this vision of what you think your life should be. Um, Eventually, you no longer, if you don't achieve it, you no longer want that because you grow and things change. Um,
Hmm.
I think to a certain extent, if you're chasing that dream constantly where you never actually achieve it, or you never get close to it, I'd be teaching. I'll probably go back and teach. That's definitely what I'm going to do. I'll do at some point, whether whatever point that comes along down the road. Go back and teach college or high school or something like that.
You got
Um,
kids?
was it?
You got kids?
No, I don't. No.
So that's just have other people's kids. That's what one thing
Exactly.
I found
Yeah.
funny about parenting. Like,
Yeah.
dude, there's so many kids that are like in the foster system or like abandoned or orphaned. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, why are like I understand why Bill Gates and all these other people are all for like depopulation. I'm like, because it kind of makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just
I
kidding.
mean,
It's so dark.
it's yeah. No. I mean, yeah. If you're talking, yeah, that's a whole other discussion. Yeah. I mean, I taught in the juvenile detention system, for for a year. It was one of my first teaching jobs, and that was high school kids who were in lockdown facilities, and there were a couple of them that were they were 15, 16. They've been bounced around amongst various different homes throughout their life, and like at one point, if it had probably been a few years later, I would have looked at possibly adopting somebody like an older child who could live. I was at that point I was just teaching full time, and I was working, and I was making decent money, and I had an extra room in my house. I lived in a decent neighborhood, and that would have had access to some decent schools. And there was a thought in there for a while that that I could possibly provide some access to somebody, an older student who needed a place, but it just wasn't. I wasn't in the mental capacity to be able to deal with that. You know,
A lot of people know that.
was that
A lot of people don't know about that.
about what?
Well, I mean, that sounds like that's something that was kind of near and dear to you, like that you were really considering about taking somebody in.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told anybody that. Yeah, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that. Um, no one
This
ever
is
asked me about
stuff that I wish people would talk about.
right.
Stop showing your tits on TikTok. Let's get like real.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, who knows? There's lots of different, it was just basically I had, maybe I had an opportunity and it was a, right place, wrong time, or who knows, whatever it might have been. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely not something that that I would do now, but at that point it would have been something I could have done for a few years in the right place. And I didn't explore it very much.
Sure.
I have a couple friends who've adopted recently, with some kids who were in early like late junior high, early high school. That's a whole other ball game.
That's a different ball game, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, see, I'm adopted, so
Okay.
I'm all for it,
Yeah.
100%. I had a question just a second ago when I try and stay in the moment as best I can.
Yeah.
How about you, man? Like, do you ever feel like sometimes you lose hold of the present and just everything just gets kind of caught up, or do you feel that?
All the time, yeah. Yeah.
What about with
Well,
Soundbox? Do you think?
was it?
Well, with Soundbox, how is it that you're trying to? That's what it was. It was about Soundbox.
Yeah.
You started a company, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And you must have started it for some reason, that like a huge in like that passion, like, or else you wouldn't be doing it. So why'd you start it? Why Soundbox?
It was an accident, purely an accident. It was, I had the studio. That's where I am right now. I'm in the studio, and it's at my house. It's in the back of my back part of my house, so it's a separate facility. And just started teaching classes here and having people over who were learning. We were all kind of figuring out voiceover at the same time. When I got back into it in 2014, 2015, and started inviting friends over who to take classes and just get in the booth and figure out what it's like to be on a microphone and how to navigate the whole industry. And people started asking, "Hey, oh, it was cool. I booked a session. Can I, I'm used to being in your studio for rehearsal or for classes. Can I come record at your studio?" I was like, I guess so. I guess we'll figure it out. I guess I'll charge you money to come into my studio. And then it kind of grew. People were like, "Oh, well, I need ISDN. Do you have ISDN?" Oh, no, well, let me get ISDN. So next week we'd have ISDN. And, hey, I need this microphone. Do you have that microphone? Nope, I don't have that microphone. Well, let me build this. And, we booked a big video game that a client booked out 6 months here. So then we did a big remodel and rebuilt the studio
Dude,
to accommodate that. And that was in 2017? Must have been 2017, I think. And then just kind of has grown from there. And it's just kind of this idea that I kind of built the studio around what the community needed and what the clients needed. So as opposed to building a studio and hoping people would show up, people were here, and I just kind of started catering to the needs of what the community needed and what my friends needed, and then what clients started hearing about the studio needed. And then as we went into COVID, into lockdown, I really kind of got in the forefront of trying to make sure that we were clean and safe, and providing a studio that people who felt it didn't feel comfortable going to other studios would feel comfortable going into. And so kind of picked up a lot of people who, if they absolutely had to go into a studio in this last year, that I could provide them a place where they would feel comfortable.
So you meant clean and safe specifically because of like the Rona?
Corona, yeah. Yeah, especially because you're in if I leave right now, I'm in basically a soundproof booth that's airtight. To a certain extent, there's ventilation in here. But if I leave this room, whatever is in the air and is going to sit in the air for however long it's going to sit in the air. So if somebody comes in behind me, or you have multiple people in the studio at one time, or pop filter, you got the microphone, all this other stuff is potentially dangerous
Sure.
We have a lot of people in it, at one time. So trying to figure out, trying to follow the science and trying to follow the protocol and CDC and LA County and SAG-AFTRA to provide a place that people would feel safe and could keep
So
working.
much lack of control.
Yeah. Because like there are a lot of people who don't have studios, and a lot of people don't have home studios. And when things got locked down last year, there were a lot of people who were out of work and just couldn't work and had no other option except to not to work, either not work or to find a safe studio where they could go into. And even through all of last year, we provided a safe space, but I always advocated for people to work from home if possible, and we would help out in whatever way we could, because I didn't want people to feel pressured to go into a studio if they didn't feel safe.
Well, that's caring about your customers. I like that. A lot of people don't do that, but
Yeah, true. Yeah, yeah.
we ever wonder if oh, that's getting too political. I'm not going to ask that question. Dude, I have to act like a fool, or I have to act wise because I'm a fool. Does it make
Right,
sense?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
there's so much comedy gold and so much just like there's I wish I could talk about some of the things I would want to talk about, but I can't because people are going to be like, I'm going to judge him and quit watching his crap. Actually, what do you think about that? The polarization of opinions and ideas, and like people getting butthurt these days about like the cancel culture and all this other stuff. Like, dude, what do you think about it?
You know what? It is a that is a tough one to answer, because I feel that I mean, I'm a child of the '80s. I grew up um, in the backlash of heavy metal and the backlash of all the stuff. Let's cancel. Van Halen, Motley Crue. I mean, anybody in the '80s, or Dee Snider. You're talking about Zappa up on Capitol Hill, and putting warning labels on music. So I grew up in the era of that, where it was like, just let people listen to what they want to listen to. Like, they can, why do we have to police all of that? And then I think we swung a hardcore other direction, where it was just saying do whatever you want to do without acknowledging that it hurts other people. And now honestly, I don't have an answer for that, because I agree with a lot of it, and a lot of it I don't agree with, and it's not a black and white issue, and it's a lot of times it's seems to be a knee-jerk reaction to something that people have a reaction without knowing all of the details of something. And there's certain things
You
that,
know details. I can't believe you said that.
yeah, research and details and understanding, because things, there's so much nuance in a lot of things. And then sometimes things are just as simple as, this guy should have been called out a long time ago for stuff that he did, and somebody should have been called out a long time ago for things they did. And yeah, they absolutely shouldn't have had this much leeway because they were in a position of power or had money. But then to trickle that down and assume that trickles down to everything below them, I don't think is necessarily the wisest way either. I don't know. I don't have an easy answer for that. I mean, that's one of the things that, like, I think as growing up and being a teacher, is that there's 500 different ways to look at something, and I always try and look at everything for as many perspectives as possible. And it's tough. I think we're gonna whip in one direction and get very, very hardcore in policing what people are saying, what people are thinking, and that maybe we'll find a balance at some point. But I mean, I think it's going to get worse. I think we're gonna get more people. As with anything, I think you can get extremes in any direction. If you have you start having extreme cancel culture for people just because you don't particularly care for somebody or like somebody's opinion, that then it becomes a hardcore cancel them, which is dangerous, but doesn't benefit people who do need to be called out and canceled, and have them themselves held responsible for things they've said and things they've done.
Well, it sounds like Soundbox is bringing the balance to the world.
Sure, sure. trying to bring the fairness, trying to bring a place where people feel safe and comfortable, and it can come. And as as artists and voice actors, as any artist, if you're in a place where you feel safe and comfortable, you're going to do the best work you can. And so, in trying to provide a place that is safe and comfortable for people, regardless of what they're doing. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But still people left to their own devices.
People left to their own devices. No, absolutely. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think we have a generation of people who are coming up, which actually was interesting because the students people who are coming out of college now were my fourth grade students when I first started teaching. They're all the students that I taught through elementary school,
Mm.
who are now graduating from college, and they're now getting out there, and they're the ones who are making these calls and holding people responsible, and I think that's great in a lot of instances, and some instances it's not. And again, it's not just a blanket. You can't make a blanket statement about a lot of things, and there are nuance, and so it's such an impossible.
You said the whole black and white thing earlier. It was like, people are going to get pissed at that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. It's not binary. It's not just ones and O's, and there's not just there's not a right and wrong in a lot of, in some instances. In some instances, there absolutely are just an absolute right and wrong, and somebody should be called out.
Sure.
They're wrong, and, called for it. But
well, that brings up an interesting thing, because would you ever want to run the world? Like, honestly, think about it. Like, if you were numero uno on the top of the chain, would you ever want to?
I don't think so. I don't think I could be decisive enough in one direction to be able to actually make things consistently governable, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It is, not everybody has the same needs, and I don't know that I think that a lot of ways that, at least currently, that if things are run, is that you pick a lot of people, however you want to run things, pick a certain. They pick, okay, this is the type of people that I want to be with, and this is how I want things to run. So I'm going to do things that are beneficial for them at the expense of other people. And I,
that's like corporations.
It's corporations, yeah, exactly. Corporations, governments,
leaders, all that sort of. Because I mean, isn't like someone's got to lose, or that just sounds like a scarcity mindset, though. I don't know.
Well, that's that. I don't know. I don't know that somebody does have to lose. I think that people can get if people get what they need for their circumstances, they don't have to lose. It's when you try and I put my needs on what I think I need is the same as what everybody else needs, and I force my needs or what I think people want into their circumstances and their environment and their lives, and they don't get what they need. And it doesn't have to be at the expense of me, or their life doesn't. I don't have to be at the expense of what they need. I think everybody can get what they need.
Yeah, that's true.
I would hope so.
I would hope too. Speaking of which, actually, I love problem solving. Like, I love talking about problems. I love talking about solutions. The whole victim mentality thing of, like, you are your own problem and solution. I want to talk about, I kind of want to problem solve in the moment. Like, I'm curious as to what the next step is for Soundbox. It's Soundbox LA, right? I'm just
sure. Yeah. Soundbox. Well, Soundbox LA is my studio, so it's Soundbox Studio Group is the group of studios, and then Soundbox LA is my location. So we have Soundbox Studio City, Soundbox West Side, Soundbox Colorado, and Soundbox LA.
I don't think I ever recorded at one of them, by the way.
Was that?
I don't think I ever recorded at a Soundbox.
Oh, really? Yeah, we've been closed down. My location's been the only one that's been open since March 13th of last year. We shut everything down.
Wow.
Anyway,
so problem solving. The next step for your studio.
We this last year we've kind of branched out to doing like union signatory services, payroll service, helping provide more casting, more full kind of top to bottom services, so we could take a client from I guess conception to production. So they come to us from the original. We can help with casting. We can do all the recording. We can do all of the post production, and we can do the final delivery as well. So we're kind of becoming a top to bottom service as far as that goes. We can handle payroll. We can convert jobs to union. So we have a lot of people that we work with, kind of into union voice talent who who wants to be able to convert jobs union so they can keep working those jobs. So we do a lot of conversion work. I think just in general, more advocacy for the voiceover industry,
Mm.
as far as finding fair rates for talent, finding ways for people in the industry to keep working at fair rates and fair jobs in a way that is able to make a living doing you're able to make a living doing voiceover. It's becoming increasingly difficult as more and more jobs become non-union or even union jobs that aren't as prevalent as they used to be, or they're not doing as big of buys as they used to be. So it gets harder and harder to make a living, or it takes substantially more work. You have to be from instead of just you don't just walk in the booth and read and be an actor. You have to do all the marketing, the business, and everything across the board. Which what was that?
Training.
Training, yeah. Which a lot of people don't have. Not a lot of people. Some people just want to act. They just want to be voice actors, and that's great. I just don't know that it currently is not the easiest route to go, nor an easy reality to make happen if you don't have all of the other tools in there, which is the marketing and the branding and being able to bill your clients and being able to run your own studio and handle the tech and being able to self-direct. Which is a lot more than you had to do 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So in voiceover, at least.
Well, so that's how you guys are solving it with Soundbox LA is you're basically kind of doing the full scope.
We're doing the full scope and handling remote services. So we do a lot of connections where we'll, people still don't want to go back to studios. And I think a lot of people are never going to go back to full studios. So we can handle the remote connections. We can record, remote record them and bridge in. We have a bridging service so we can get, anybody connected to anybody anywhere in the world and record them and basically provide the service of being an engineer as if they were in the studio. It's just they're recording from their own home studio.
Let's talk about financing,
mm-hmm.
because that's one of the main. That's actually where our current. We're trying to raise some funds for our animated feature right now. We have a crime drama in the works. Animation studios attached via LOI, and we got a meeting tomorrow and getting everything set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
But the main thing that most people get stuck on is financing. Even though they got like for us, we have a good product, we have a good script, and they want to make it. The EP director, they're like, we want to do this, but financing. How is it that what most people like, how do you pitch that stuff? How do you say like, dude, this is for the betterment of mankind? This is actually solving the problem.
Right.
Forget the numbers, forget the distribution, forget all that crap. Like, how do you attach the passion of what you're doing to bring out the emotion in the pitches that you have to do? Do you do that? Do you have a producer that does that? How is it that you guys actually get the money to make the things that you guys are doing?
We don't really work on that side of things right now. As far as like the creation of the pitch. I'm working on a project right now that we're gonna get to that point. But mostly we're in the kind of in the middle. We're the facilitators. So somebody will come to us. They have the pitch and they have the money and they have the finances, and then we can help them do this, fiscally responsibly and as best as they can do this. But yeah, that's a whole other ball. It's a whole other ball game, man. Financing for these projects is insane, and and I've been in. We haven't done any projects that I've done the financing for that we've had to pitch for, but I've been involved with enough projects that I've seen. That I've been in that conversation with them as they've either tried to find the budgeting or the budgeting fell apart or the project fell apart. That it is tough, man. It is tough. I wish I had an answer for it.
Well, and that's fine. What do you think of some of the things that really makes a project just fall apart? The things that you personally have seen, like what do you know what I mean? Like, what have you seen a project wise that just goes,
or
something that kills a project that you've seen?
Committees. Project.
Okay.
Somebody who, and then on the flip side, somebody who had such a singular idea that they weren't willing to find a way to make it work if it wasn't 100% exactly the way they wanted it to work. and then just a couple projects I've seen, they just didn't have. They had good ideas, but didn't have the execution. It didn't have the people who knew how to do it, and didn't have the talent they needed to do the project as best as they could. And because of financing or whatever reasons, instead of trying to either wait and do it at the right time, or when they had more financing, they tried to cut corners and do kind of a half-assed job of a project that didn't live up to their expectations or what they thought it was going to be. And it's just, it gets done, but it's not really serving any purpose, the purpose of the person who was creating it, or creating something people are going to want to watch. And personalities. I mean, personalities always, personality conflicts are always a great way to kill a project or to, derail something. I've seen enough projects where it's, or worked with enough people, whereas I've been the fourth person to come in to help work on this project, and people warn you ahead of time, don't get involved with this person. And you're like, no, I can make it work. And you get in there and you're like, yep, I see exactly what you're talking about. Can't work with this person. And you move on and find, you find something else.
No names, no warnings.
No names, no warnings. No.
Thanks a lot. See, that's what sucks about this. It's like, dude, I know people have black books. Like I've already started making. Like, I'm not working with this person, this person, this person, and I'm sure that I'm on one of those lists a year or two.
Probably. I can say honestly that I have one person on my list of all the time that I've been doing this.
No, thanks a lot, Tim. Thank you.
One person. Maybe after this interview, maybe two. But no, no. No, I mean, a lot of people are great. I'm also very, after I taught elementary school for 12 years, so adults are a piece of cake to deal with. I have enough patience for adults. So, I can work with a lot of people. But no, I honestly can say I think I have one person on my list that I just won't work with again. But beyond that, it's like, some people I would prefer not to work with again.
Anybody who knows you and have worked with you and has seen this, they're going to be like,
who's that one person? Yeah. No, anybody who knows me, anybody who works, anybody in Soundbox will know exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll have to do an off the record thing just to be like, oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Like, exactly. No, thank you. Never.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. Did you ever consider like doing more on-screen stuff, or were you more strict of like music and then?
No, I don't want to. I mean, I've had a couple of friends who have been trying to push me for years to do on camera. I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to see myself. I don't want to do that shit, So I don't want to have to look at myself. So no, I don't want to be on camera.
Dude, it's all about, like, Shelby and I were talking today about like the whole vulnerability of. So I'm not as great on camera as she is. Like, she's made for screen. She's made to perform. She is. Yeah. And I hope that someday you guys get to catch up, because I mean, this has been, I love conversing with pros. I really do. So I appreciate this, by the way, but
yeah, awesome. Yeah.
But when you find your lane, you just get a little prouder.
No, absolutely.
No. Absolutely. Speaking of pride, what is a couple of things that just spark right in the moment of like, damn, that was such a great moment in my life? Like, what are you most proud of, dude?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that.
I mean, you do so much. I
do a lot. I mean,
do the VO.
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of the studio stuff that we've built here. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I'm not sure that anything particularly stands out as something I'm, extremely proud of. Lots of things I'm pleased about, but I think that's part of being an artist, is that, like, I always think something could have been better and something could have been
preaching to my soul, man.
Yeah. I'm proud of the work I did with my students. I'm proud of, I went back to grad school a few years ago and graduated in 2016. I'm proud of the work I did.
You got your master's, right?
A master's in music education.
That's awesome.
From Boston University. I'm proud of the work that I did there, but then, I graduated in May and promptly quit teaching in June. So I went right into voiceover. That was the first year I went full time in voiceover. So, I didn't really get to take that work that I had done in grad school and implement it into the classroom. But I do a lot of teaching. I'll teach classes and stuff here at the studio, and so I got a chance to kind of implement all of that into just general teaching of working or directing with working with voice talent. Um, that I get a chance to implement some of that work as well. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
What about something you want to be proud of? Like that's something that's coming up. You're like,
Um,
I accomplished this, then I'll be happy.
I don't know if that'll ever happen.
I love your honesty.
Um, I mean, I don't know. I think if I think it gives you a false sense of accomplishment if you're like, if I can just do that thing, then I'll be happy. Because there's always going to, you're going to get through, and there's going to be a hollowness to it if it didn't quite really live up to your expectations. You may have accomplished it, but if you don't, I don't know. I mean, it's. I would much rather be proud of the entire life that I have and things that I do to be proud of versus one particular thing that sticks out in that. And if that's a cop out, it's a cop out. I don't really. I
Oh
don't
no,
really.
I want to hear your first response, your gut reaction, because so many people go through life of just like, if I do this, then I'll be happy. Like right now, I'm in kind of in that position, so I'm just
Yeah.
curious if you get that way sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, but I think to a certain extent, at least for myself, is like that it always, by the time you've achieved that or done something, that it doesn't always look the way you would imagine it to look. And if it doesn't, then there's a little disappointment in there if it didn't exactly pan out to your expectations. Um, so I'm very much of like an improv. I hate planning things out. Even when I was teaching, I hate curriculum. I want to be able to serve the needs of the people I'm working with in the moment that I'm working with them. The students that I obviously I know what I want to
That's really
teach.
why I hate public schools. Like
Oh yeah,
it's just a blanket of information that is, most of it is outdated or meaningless, and teaches people how to retire in their 60s versus get rich in their 20s. So
right, right, exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, and that's a whole public education system in America is a whole other topic and discussion for a whole other
so
time.
so, so part 2 and part 3 coming up within the
Exactly.
next
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. I mean, I honestly think we had it would have taken a cultural sea change, but we had an opportunity during this lockdown for teachers to say, you know what, no, we're not going to come back until we figure out this system that we have in America right now that doesn't serve anybody really the best that it can. Um, and even private schools. Most of my experience was in private schools, and private schools are struggling to make things work for their students and don't always serve the students as best they can. So I can only imagine what public schools are like right now.
Well, I
I
think,
haven't been in public schools in a long time, so.
doesn't it, I mean, it does start with parents, like if you have a bad like household, or if you have something going wrong, like a lot of toxic negative energy that you're growing up with, like
Absolutely, yeah.
try and get out away from it as best as possible.
Well,
Public,
but
private,
schools aren't equipped to be able to handle that. They're not. They're
it's
the
not their job. It's not the government's job.
right. Well, it's not the government's job, and it's to it, or to a certain extent, if it is, then there needs to be resources there for teachers to be able to deal with those students who
Right.
have issues at home, and there's not. And that's where you end up with students in lockdown facilities because the school can't handle them. So then it's just easier to send them to rehab or into send them to juvenile detention or send them to jail, whatever it might be, instead of dealing with the situations. I went from public school to private school. One year I was in juvenile detention, and the next year I was teaching in Brentwood. And the issues the students have are the same in both public schools and private schools. There's issues at home. There's issues with personality conflicts. There's issues with emotional conflicts. There's issues that all students have, and students in a private school, or in my experience, have more of a safety net than students in a public school, who don't have a safety net. But the underlying issues are all appear to be all very similar. Um, just some students have access to those resources to help them solve these problems, and a lot of students don't.
Yeah. And then some people also still, when they have those, you can't, force a horse.
No, absolutely not. But if you can give somebody, you give people the opportunity and the resources, and hopefully you can guide some of them in a direction that will help them get help.
I love that. See, that's what I vibe with that, man. So I'm glad that at least, you sound like you were trying to take care of as many people. And I mean, you seem like you have a good mindset. And that's one thing about this industry, that if you don't have like that thick skin resiliency, or just like fuck it attitude sometimes, or that just a little bit of arrogance or cockiness to you, that, or that confidence really, then you're done.
Yeah, you're done. And then I think to a certain extent, like there's, there are people in positions of power, but there's no governing body that says you have to be a voice actor a certain way, or you have to be an on-screen camera actor a certain way, or you have to create things.
Really?
There's no
thing where you have to use an Asian, a white person, a black person, a Mexican, an alien, what, you have to make art in a certain way in order to be a part of this union, but you can do whatever you want on you. What?
Right. Well, I mean, in voice, who's laying down? I mean, if you want to create a studio and just go out and do voiceover and create something, who's to say you can't do that?
Well, I mean, they can say, like,
say,
with the project that we're working on, like, I was considering, I was like, well, what if a black dude could voice a white guy and a white chick could voice a black chick? Like, who cares? Who gives a shit? Like, why does it matter so damn much if you got the job?
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I
get befuddled sometimes. I do.
Yeah.
I got an idea. Everyone close their eyes. Problem solved.
All right. Yeah, right. Well, yeah, okay. To a certain extent, look at, like Hank Azaria and Apu and his decision to step away from Apu. This is a conversation we've had a lot in the groups that we're in, and it's something that a lot of people are, from casting to directing and everything, are trying to figure out a way to deal with this in a way that's fair for everybody. And the way that I look at it is that it goes beyond how you sound, and you may be able to sound a certain way, but I think there is a truth and authenticity that somebody who's lived that experience can bring to the character that somebody who hasn't lived that experience can't bring.
What if that person is not fit for the job versus the person that can actually perform the job? Then what? Is it not about the art? Does it not matter? Or is that?
Well, I think there are enough people out there that can do the job that you won't have the problem.
That's fair.
I think there are, and if we, if you say that, oh, well, I can't find this particular person to fill this character because there aren't enough people who can perform this character adequately, then you have to look harder, because there are enough people out there who can act in any demographic and any color, any race, who can fill that role. And it's tough. It is tough. There are, if you're
questionable things to it.
Was that?
Some questions, like some things can be questionable, but I mean, eventually you got to pull the trigger on something.
At some point, when it comes down to the very, at the very end, and you're like, I just have to fill that role, or this project's not going to go forward, I have to do it. There are tough choices that have to be made, and from a business standpoint, if you're looking at it and you've done everything you can, and you're down and you have to pick what you pick, then I don't know that you really have much choice. But I think that's something that needs to be looked at preemptively, and knowing that if you're going into this project that has this specific character,
sensitive material type stuff,
or just something that we know needs to be performed in an authentic way from somebody who's going to have that experience.
Sure.
That maybe not a lot of people are going to have. That's a little, that is more difficult to find. Then look at that and then look at that preemptively, and go out and try and find, knowing that you're going to have trouble filling this role authentically, then look at that ahead of time before. And so that comes back to whoever's creating the project. That comes back to the casting. Right. These things need to be looked at ahead of time before you get into the casting process, and you can't assume that it's going to be easy to fill every single role equally across the board, because there's not either the people that you need aren't getting access to the auditions because they're not in a position to get access to those auditions, or it's something so specific that you're going to have to really go out and recruit and advocate for somebody to fill that exact role the way you want it.
Yeah, that's so well said. That's well said. I mean, if I could take any part of this whole conversation, it would be right there. Just of the business aspect, the authenticity. I mean, a lot of people are going more for like the realism of things now versus you know, like that commercial sound. You know, they're actually going for conversational because eventually that's, you know, right now we have robots taking over TikTok voice stuff, right?
Well, that's a real voice that's been synthesized. Yeah, real voice has been synthesized and cut up and processed into an AI voice. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. No, I mean, well, and that's a whole. You know, yeah, that's a whole. That's the future right there, and
So if you want a job for the long-lasting AI, do voiceover. Yeah.
do voiceover. Well, do voiceover and make sure that your you know your IP, your product is protected.
Yeah.
Your audio
Actually,
file,
that's a great point.
you know.
That's a
Yeah,
really good point.
I mean, I'll record whatever you want. If you're going to use it for the next 20 years, I want to get paid for it.
Right.
You know, I want my residuals the way anything else, you know, any other commercial union thing would be. And you know, if you're going to be, you know, like I think one of the earliest like video games, you know, like everybody who came out and who did Halo, like the original Halo. I've when it first came out, I played it briefly, but I've never really ever played it. But you know, how many millions and millions and millions and billions of people have heard those voices?
Yeah.
And those actors who did the original Halo got a day rate. So what do they make? A few $1,000s.
Ridiculous.
You know? And had that been a movie where they're getting residuals every time it's aired, you know, you'd be rolling in the dough.
Yep. But that right there though is all about negotiation, and I truly believe that it's upon oneself. It doesn't matter about the agent, doesn't matter about the company, doesn't matter about any of those. I mean, that's your responsibility as an artist, is to know exactly how much you are worth and charge that.
If you're given all the correct information when you do the audition.
Exactly.
You do the job.
Right.
After,
Can you perform the job, and can you charge that much?
Right, and are you sure that you're getting the correct information from whoever's hiring you, that they're only going to use your use your work in what they say they're going to use it for? And that's tough. And you know, looking into the future, like you know, who knows what's going to, you know, but we're having a conversation about synthesized AI voices that would not have happened 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like people may have, you know, people obviously been thinking about this for a while, and you know, you've been talking about AI voices for a long time, but to be in the reality that somebody's voice has been taken and used in a way that creates them to say something that they never have ever said in their entire life. Talking deep fakes, talking about, you know, things along those lines. Like that is a reality of what is happening right now.
That's right.
And it's only going to get better. It's only going to become more realistic.
Yeah.
So how can we look to what possibly is going to happen and protect ourselves now from something that may happen 10 years from now?
See, I love entropy. I love all the like end of the world type stuff. So this stuff just turns me on. So don't make me like, yeah.
Who knows where we're going to be in, you know, I mean, it could be the point where, you know, I could, you have somebody just recite the alphabet and they can turn that into anything they want to turn it into.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and what are we going to look at with, you know, looking at, you know, NFTs and blockchain and crypto, and who knows how, you know, how can that be integrated into what we do in art, which is already happening in NFTs with art and music and things along those lines. So does that become a viable technological solution to issues that we're having? Could be.
This is the stuff that I wish more people would talk about. Or maybe I'm just in the wrong rooms.
I don't know. I'm just making shit up.
No, but you've got super good points though. Like I like the fact when people think about the future type stuff like that in the way that you just prefaced it.
We have to, and you know, in any industry, you know, I was in, you know, I'm a musician, so look at what happened with Napster and all of the MP3s and all the file sharing services that basically has decimated the music industry for anybody who's not a top 10 artist.
So live shows is where it's at now, because I mean, you got to tour to make money, and versus
no, not even live shows. It's merchandising and selling merch at a show, or selling tickets, or getting, you know, it's not even so much about the live experience, yes, but I think beyond that, it's the physical merchandise that you can get at the products at the stores.
Some tangible asset versus a digital.
as far, well, in the non-music sense, yeah. I mean, I think music is going to be. I mean, music is digital and it's going to stay digital. And it's, I don't know that it's there. There will be, there is a return to vinyl for some people and a return to tapes and CDs and 8 tracks maybe. I don't know. Um,
Niches make riches, man.
yeah, yeah. Um, and it's a catch-22 because along with all the technology that basically has decimated that industry, it also has opened up a whole venue where you can become an artist selling directly to your fans from songs that you created on your laptop in your bedroom that you couldn't have done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
If you didn't have access to, to a massive, to a professional recording studio, you couldn't have created and put out and distributed an album. And now you can, and you can go direct. But in that same lines,
Should, because
what
some people's music sucks.
to you it does, yeah. Yeah, and to me it does. Somebody likes it,
To somebody, they're like, "Oh my god, this is the best show
Great.
ever."
Somebody likes it, you know. But yeah, but to get into to be able to reach those higher levels on Spotify, to be able to reach those higher levels on Pandora, and be able to get streamed regularly to the point where you are able to make a living, you still need access. You need that machine behind you to make that happen. Which is very, you have a consolidation of record labels down to, I think there's three record labels left, right? I mean, there's three and then three companies, and they own all the record labels under those three umbrellas. So, that's a whole massive consolidation that you get, which then consolidation is, eliminates opportunities to create something outside of that ecosystem.
Yeah, especially if you don't have the right systems in place, or how do you compete with the big wigs and that sort of, I mean, that whatever has happened in the industry so far, the people who are at the top have set themselves up very, very well.
And they've set it up with, closed off the walls and kept it to themselves. So, back to what what we were saying earlier about, looking and you can negotiate. Sure, I can negotiate a great rate for if you give me whatever information you give me, I'll negotiate something I think is fair. But if you're keeping that information hidden behind a wall somewhere and aren't going to tell me, or you're going to maybe just take this work and go send it to somebody else and let them deal with it and use it in the way that they want to, I can't negotiate that because I don't have all the information.
Yeah, you gotta put some cards on the table.
Yeah,
let people know what's up. Yeah. Couple things, and then we'll get out of here for you, so you can get back to kicking more ass.
Yeah.
Who do you want to work with? Like, who's somebody that if they saw this and like, you know what, I need to work with Tim. Like, I need to play with Tim. I need to write with Tim. I need to get in touch with Tim. Like, or if they see this, like, how can who do you want to work with?
I was, I don't know. I want to work with great artists who are passionate about what they do, and want to create something great. Which is one of the reasons why I moved to LA originally, was hopefully to find like a group of people who were just focused on being musicians and artists. And that's who I want to work with. I want to work with people who are thinking ahead and pushing the envelope and trying to create something new, so it's not just a reaction to what's happening right now out of a sense of panic, but a kind of a preemptive. I've said preemptive like 500 times, but like looking forward to what can something we can create right now that is going to be phenomenal in 5 years because it's something that we're passionate about, or something that I have, an idea that we have that somebody can build on. That's the type of stuff that I like working with. So things that are out of the ordinary, things that aren't just safe and in the normal, narrow line of creation that we see a lot of.
Yeah, I totally get it. So me.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is serendipitous right now. Exactly what we needed. So.
Oh, I couldn't help it. Sorry. I just after hearing your stuff, I was hearing you. I'd be like, I would want to work with Tim. Yeah. Maybe I should send my one pager over. Be like, hey,
exactly.
Yeah. Once we get the funding, can we hire you?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my answer would have been different a few years ago than it is now, for sure. I've been lucky to work with a lot of great people. So it's, and some of those people were people I was looking forward to that didn't quite pan out the way I thought it was going to.
Well, I would love to hear those stories the next time that we bring you on. How does that sound?
Well, that's just one of those things that is, I think the better way to say it is that somebody that people's how people present themselves and what you think of them is not always the reality of who that person is when you get into the room with them and you get a chance to work with them, and not for anybody's fault or anything in particular. It's just that, the thought of somebody, the legend of somebody is different than the reality of somebody. So
no expectations, man.
no expectations. And some people I've never heard of have been phenomenal people, some of the best artists I've worked with, versus some who, who have big names or whatever that you want, that you think are going to be great to work with. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm, it's been a tough year. I'm at the point where it's like, I just don't care. I'll, like, hopes and dreams have gone out the window. Let's just try and get through the day, So.
Oh man, I love your honesty. I love how vulnerable you got. I really do, man. This was so much fun just to be able to sit and talk.
Thanks.
And I'll be straight out, like I said, dude, I don't research people prior to interviewing them, because I think it kind of kills like what we can actually talk about. Be like, oh my God, like you did this and this. Oh my God. Like versus like, yo, what are you up to?
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's, it's, just talk. You never know what's going to happen, what's going to come out. So
Tim, thanks so much, man. I want to be able to set something up again sometime in the future, and especially with my partner next time. Absolutely. So I think that'll be fun. And then you'll have to tell me who that person was after the
yeah
sometime. So we'll stay in touch.
For sure, man.
Cool. Awesome. Tim, thanks a lot.
Thank you.